Hi, I'm Phil Harbottle, and this is my 49th video discussing British science fiction. In this video, I'll be discussing the first 5 Space 99 novelizations written by E.C. Tubb. Space 1999 was a famous Gerry Anderson television series in the 1970s which dealt with the adventures of a colony on moon base Alpha after the moon was cast adrift from the solar system, blasted out of its orbit by a massive atomic explosion. Whilst it was running, the novelizations and original books derived from the TV scripts were written by E.C. Tubb, with 5 titles, with others by Brian Ball, 1, John Rankine, real name Douglas Mason, with 5, and Michael Butterworth, with 6. Of Tubb's first 5 titles, only Breakaway and Collision Course were based on the Gerry Anderson TV scripts. The following 3, which you see here, were entirely original stories, but used the TV characters and the same basic background on the moon. Some years later, Tubb would go on the record as to how he had tackled his assignment. He said, "I don't claim to be a scientist myself, but I am a writer with an understanding of science. So, when in 1974 I was approached to novelise some of the scripts of the new Space 99 television series, I found it something of a challenge. When I was given the assignment of writing the books, I was taken to a screening in London with 2 other writers who were also doing the books, Brian Ball and Douglas Mason. I recall that it was a cinema in Marble Arch, and I saw 4 or 5 episodes of the programme. I was impressed by what I saw on the screen and thought that the writing of the books would be quite exciting. But when I saw the actual scripts, I was very concerned about some of the scientific inconsistencies. The concept of the programme was interesting, but quite constricting for a writer like myself who liked to be as scientifically accurate as possible. It seemed as if every alien species they met talked English. It could have been a crab sitting on a rock, and it turns around and says, "Hello, Commander Koenig, we've been expecting you." I know the characters had to communicate, but they created an idea that gave them many problems in terms of realism and scientific accuracy. Another line was something like, "His blood's frozen solid." Now, I know you need drama and all the rest of it, but it should, to my way of thinking, be plausible, and some of these stories weren't. All scientific criticism aside, I thought the programme itself was excellent entertainment, and I was impressed by the design of the moon base itself, the costumes and space vehicles and so on. But for me as a writer, I felt that some of the original scripts would need some alteration, as well as something extra of my own. The strong central character, Commander John Koenig, was someone else's creation, and I didn't know him like I do Earl Humorist, who is my own character. So I had to really think about how he was portrayed by Martin Landau in the actual programme, with a little bit extra input that I enjoyed putting in there myself. Let's take a look at Tubb's titles in chronological order, beginning with Breakaway. This was issued as a paperback by the UK publisher Futura in their Orbit Books imprint in February 1975. It sold very well, so much so that they quickly issued a reprint, second edition. So the series got off to a good start. There was also a hardcover edition, which we see there, from Dennis Dobson, which mirrored the Futura edition. And then it was reprinted in the United States by Pocket Books in September 1975. The US edition added 12 pages of black and white photos from the television episode. You see, See there? Unlike the British edition, they had 12 pages of photographs. And the US edition was also distinguished by having on the back covers the 3 principal characters in the series, as uniform back covers on the American editions. The British editions just had a blurb on the back. Now this opening novel, Breakaway, follows the TV script in describing how the moon is used as a nuclear waste dump which spontaneously combusts itself in a nuclear explosion, wrenching the moon from its Earth orbit. Tubb was obliged to dutifully follow this absurd central premise closely, doing the best he could to give it a flim-flam of scientific plausibility. The main characters, Commander John Koenig, Dr. Helena Russell, and scientist Victor Bergman, and pilot Alan Carter, are briefly but deftly described in this opening novel. In fact, the opening section of the novel is brisk and readable. However, once the moon had broken away, the novel was less convincing, as Tubb laboured to bolster their absurdities. As first a new planet within the solar system is encountered, and then a sentient alien probe, a machine intelligence supposedly sent as an alien vanguard that had been based on Neptune for years, Neptune's moon Triton, which has just happened to have recently disappeared without the probe noticing. The book ends with the moon falling into a black hole and surviving the transit to another universe, thanks to Bergman pulling 4 screen miracles out of his scientific conjurer's hat. Collision Course was again first published in paperback by Futura in October 1975, along with the hardcover from Dennis Dobson again, and the US edition appeared from Pocket Books in the United States in February 1976, this time with just a 6-page photo insert. There's just 6 pages in the second title. Now, Tubb labours again to adapt 4 original scripts into a novel. Whilst his writing is as smooth as ever, his normal foundations of strict logic and the plotting are completely absent. 2 of the original scripts are irredeemably idiotic. An asteroid threatening the Alphan moon is destroyed by atomic bombs, only to be replaced by another planet ruled by Ara, Queen of Etheria. The planet disappears before colliding with the moon, transmuted into something new and strange, lifted by the catalytic influence of Alpha into another type of material. The planet's quickly replaced by yet another, this time with a breathable atmosphere. The landing party are then transmuted into primitive cave people, troglodytes, by a mysterious mist. The 3rd and 4th segments are more successful, as they are concerned with immortality, a theme often employed by Tubb himself. In the 3rd section, an immortal man is released from his alien spaceship prison, where he's been entombed by an alien race he sought to tyrannize. Utterly evil and sadistic, he's a deadly threat to the Alphans, until he's tricked by Koenig into entering an airlock, where he's blasted safely into space. On the planet Thule, the Alphans find the crew of an earlier Earth expedition to Uranus, who have not very convincingly been hurled across space and time by a convenient space warp. The planet has bestowed eternal life on its inhabitants, but at a terrible price. For the 3rd novel, Tubb was invited by Futura to write his own original story, one using the television characters and background, but not based on any of the scripts. Alien Seed was published in August 1976, along with a UK hardcover, this time from Arthur Barker. But Arthur Barker used the wrong picture on the cover. They used a still from the second series, which has the character Mia, who isn't in the first series. But never mind, it's still a nice book and quite an expensive collector's item today. Both editions had been preceded by the US edition, published in June by Pocket Books, but now dropped the photo inserts since they weren't based on the series. They couldn't run any more photographs. Now, freed from the constraints of the original TV scripts, Tubb was able to do himself justice with this intriguing novel. He put everything into it and told me he had hopes that it might have been picked up for televising. While still firmly based on the TV characters, Tubb introduced logic and plausibility into the actions. A stellar object crashes on the moon, disgorging mysterious, alien, grapefruit-sized seeds. Not without misgivings, the Alphans plant the seeds, and the single surviving seed grows to present a real danger to the base. In outline, standard TV fare, but Tubb tells his story in human terms through the actions and interactions of the base personnel. Tubb infuses real humanity into his characters with an intriguing dichotomy between the Alphan men and women when the seed metamorphoses into a beautiful woman. The men are smitten by her, whilst the women are afraid and want her destroyed. The fear seems justified when the alien develops vampire-like tendencies. The utterly fantastic aspects of the alien's various metamorphoses are buttressed by believable terrestrial analogies, and Tubb's flowing, compulsively readable style carries the reader along nicely to the surprising, almost mystical climax. Another entirely original novel, Rogue Planet, was published by paperback by Futura in December 1976, and the UK hardcover was by Arthur Barker. Again, both UK editions had been preceded in September by the American Pocket Books edition. They also used a still from the second series, but it didn't spoil the book because the two characters were in the novel, of course. Now, this was a highly imaginative novel, bristling with cosmic wonders, although not so convincing in human terms. The storytelling was at times highly technical and scientific, offering less opportunity for the effective characterization that had made alien seeds so enjoyable. In the story, the moon enters a pocket of warped space, a closed universe dominated by a sentient planet at the center, the Omphalos, and rogue planet of the title. The Omphalos is an energy feeder, sucking up energy like a cosmic sponge and able to take it from inert and living matter alike. The moon becomes trapped in its closed universe like a fly in a spider's larder and seems set to follow the fate of other planets before it. The novel has one particularly effective section when a vast alien mausoleum is discovered under the surface of the last captured planet, which imparts considerable frisson. Commander Koenig embarks on a desperate solo mission orbiting the rogue planet in an attempt to communicate with it, only to fall victim to its insidious hallucinations and to suffer an acute aging process. When rescued, he's on the point of death through advanced senility, but fortunately Chief Scientist Victor Bergman is on hand to save him with some inspired deductive scientific reasoning. Although not so successful in human terms, the novel still offers reward for the Tubb devotee, particularly when the author employs his favourite device of exploring the dreams and hallucinations of some of the characters, offering fascinating sidebars on Roman and barbarian history. Now, after the end of the first season of the TV series, Tubbs publishers Futura sought to renew the option, but were outbid by Starbooks for the adaptation rights to the second series. Tubb was told that Futura only had the option to do just one more book based on the first season's setting and characters, Star having already contracted Michael Butterworth to adapt the second season for them. So Futura gave Tubb carte blanche to do whatever he liked and to make the book double the normal length. Knowing that it was his last novel, and with nothing to lose, Tubb commendably decided to completely revamp the entire concept and also to have the moon able to return to the solar system. The result was the 284-page Earthfall, published in paperback by Futura in March 1977. In this novel, Tubb brought to bear the full armoury of an experienced professional science fiction writer. In the TV version, none of the leading characters had been given very much in the way of personal background or motivations for their natures. Only Martin Landau, as Koenig, a talented and experienced actor, was able to give real depth and credibility to his character. Tubb began his novel on Earth, where we learn much of Koenig's personal life and motivations in resuming his command of the moon base Alpha. Once on the moon, Tubb similarly developed personal life histories and motivations for each of the main characters. We learn that Helena Russell had been married and divorced after an unhappy and childless union. In Breakaway, we'd been told that her beloved husband had died in space on an expedition to Jupiter. Tubb then dealt with the absurdity of the runaway moon. Whilst the radioactive waste on the far side of the moon was retained, this time it was struck by a giant CT meteorite, and the resultant release of enormous energies doesn't blow the moon out of its orbit, but rather warps the space around the moon into another dimension, another universe, where it whirls in free space. Tubb's science fiction panache is on display throughout the novel. The TV absurdity of having the moon reach a new solar system every other week is abandoned. In Earthfall, the moon actually travels through space for 20 years without hope of reaching another solar system. Tubb describes convincingly the development of a new society of Alphans on the moon, even a new morality, taking the opportunity to impart some scathing and pointed social criticism on present-day mores. A new generation of Alphans are born on the moon, including a son and daughter to Koenig and Helena Russell. Despite the absence of convenient planets, the novel is not without incident, as the Alphans repel an invasion from a strange race of bee-like aliens and discover a buried alien spaceship on the moon, complete with its mummified crew. Events arising from both these situations are ingeniously combined to bring the novel to a rousing and surprising conclusion. Earthfall demonstrates not only Tubb's mastery of science fiction conventions, but also his skill at characterization and his ability to transcend initially unpromising material. Unfortunately, because new American publishers Warner Books and the UK hardcover firm Allen Wingate had already contracted to publish the novelizations of the second season, they couldn't use Earthfall, which was denied an American edition as well as a UK hardcover, making this Futura paperback a rare and valuable collector's item. The second season stories were completely different to the first series, removing Victor Bergman and introducing new characters, including that character which we saw there, Mia, along with lots of alien monsters. In fact, there was like a different monster every week. The changes were not beneficial, and the TV show was cancelled after its second season. So the Space 99 novelizations then passed out of print for many years. But in my next video, number 50, I will detail their astonishing and triumphant revival by other publishers, most notably the amazing Powers Media, who have made all the titles available in superb hardcover and paperback editions, and even introduced new ones.